Stalker next door. Submitted by user slash snoohabit9495 and r slash creepy encounters. I was living next door to this family. Mom, dad, and a little girl. They seemed pretty normal, nice, just your average people. I am a female who's 21. Our gardens were right next to each other, parted with a wooden partition fence. Notice the wooden fence's partitions were beginning to come a little loose. I slept in a bedroom at the back of the house. One morning, I woke up to find handprints and a mouth print on the outside of my window, frosted over. I don't think I have ever experienced anything like the feeling of absolute dread that washed over me that morning. Continued all winter, heard a lot of weird noises. I lived in fear. During this time, I began to grow more suspicious of my next-door neighbor, especially considering the wooden partition becoming loose. I just felt an overwhelming sense of fear every single time I encountered him. He gave me chills. But I had a lease to maintain. Good area, too. Maybe it's some kid playing a joke. As spring rolled around, I noticed John was doing some gardening using weed killer. Lo and behold, the next day, dead grass in my garden, in the shape of footprints. From the dodgy wooden panel to my bedroom window and back again, confirmed everything. I took pictures, confided in my family what was happening. I just up and left that morning, packed my stuff and went. I didn't care about the lease, nada. My whole body has goosebumps even remembering this. This was about 2 years ago. It's almost like a movie scene. It's one of the most horrible things I've ever experienced in my life.
The fanatical stalking Christians we met on Halloween. Posted by user OpinionLarge. This happened when I was 12 and my brother was 17, and is truly proof that the living are more terrifying than the dead. I think about this every Halloween. This is not a paranormal story. The community I grew up in was made up mostly of Hispanic people, so the folklore of La Llorona was very popular in the area, and especially around Halloween. For those of you who don't know, the myth of La Llorona is basically a story about a woman who married a rich man, had a perfect life, and then the man cheated on her. She was so distraught that she took her children to the river and drowned them. When she'd realized what she had done, she threw herself in the river and drowned herself. But she couldn't pass on to the afterlife without her children, so she roams the river looking for her kids. If she spots living children, she will grab them and drown them to take them to the afterlife with her. The story is meant to keep kids from playing in the river. Most of my friends that year were too cool and grown up to go trick-or-treating that year, and were planning on having a party instead. I was really disappointed, and asked my brother if he would take me trick-or-treating. He agreed, and we went when it was still light outside, so I'd be able to make it to the party before the end of the night. Since we had gone too early, there weren't a lot of people ready to hand out candy, so, after a disappointing trek, we started walking back home. On our way home, we passed by a park that had a river running next to it. On Halloween, all the teens would usually wait at this park to try and see if they could spot La Llorona. Waiting to spot La Llorona at this particular park was a well-known town tradition that people had done for decades, that still continues to this day. However, there were no kids or teens there yet because it was still kind of early. But there were people in the park putting on a Llorona play. We decided to stop and watch it. There was really not much of an audience. It seems like it was just us and another few kids who were part of the group putting on the play who were not in costumes and didn't have trick-or-treating buckets with them. When we sat down, a woman approached us and asked us if we were trick-or-treating. I told her we were, and she dropped a small comic book in my trick-or-treat bag and smiled. She seemed very kind and welcoming. The play started, and I got the weird feeling that something was off. The woman, playing La Llorona, pointed my brother and me out in a tiny audience and asked us what religion we were, to which my brother responded, Roman Catholic. She then told us that La Llorona was also a Roman Catholic and was burning in hell for her sins and rejecting Jesus. She then told us that Halloween was an evil holiday, and everyone who celebrated it would burn forever. The play progressed to getting weirder and weirder, and included a scene where La Llorona started talking about abortion and held up a fake fetus and pretended to eat it. My brother and I got up to leave, but the people stopped us and started yelling at us to sit down. But we kept going. They started following us down the street, and my brother grabbed my hand and started running because he was afraid they were going to harm us. We finally got to our street, and only about 3 people were still following us, yelling at us about how we were going to go to hell and we needed to accept Jesus. My brother and I went inside quickly, and he locked the front doors and then frantically ran around the house, making sure all doors and windows were locked before he called our dad at his office. Our dad told us to call the police and that he'd be at home in 15 minutes. When my dad got home, the people were still outside, chanting and singing some prayer song, asking God to save my brother and my soul. My dad shooed them away and told them the police would be there any second. They were not deterred and stayed there chanting until the police showed up and threatened to arrest them. I was so freaked out by the events that I decided I didn't want to go to the party, and instead just wanted to organize my Halloween candy and put aside all the Snickers for my brother as a thank you for taking me trick-or-treating. Snickers were his favorite. My mom ordered pizza and we sat down to watch Halloween Town, while I went through my trick-or-treat bag. I was halfway through sorting my candy when I came across the comic book that the lady had dropped in there. I opened it up, and it truly horrified me. It was a propaganda comic about a little boy who went to a haunted house, ended up being hit by a car on the way home, and went to hell because he hadn't found Jesus. I was really scared, and for weeks as a child I had nightmares about the event and the comic book. Years later, I asked my mom if she remembered it, and she told me that she couldn't forget, and that she and my father had called the police over it several times. Apparently, for years, the group would leave envelopes with mine and my brother's names written on it, with different weird, creepy comic books and handwritten notes about how they were praying for us. Also, invitations to join them in their church, and weird promises about baking us cakes and other creepy ways to entice our child selves into their church. To this day, we can't figure out how they knew our names or who wrote the letters. It really creeps me out that they did this. I told a friend one time about the comic, and he knew exactly what they were. I ended up Googling it and finding the exact comic online. If you want to see the comic that was given to me, you can view it here.
Thank you all for watching. If you want to find the original stories or the voice actors that read them, the links are in the description down below. If you like this sort of content, we will be posting Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. All of this is being done for free and by a small independent team, so be sure to show some love. I hope you all stay creepy, stay safe, and have a gay day.